Tonight, let your mind rest for a while. You're about to drift into a story told in soft tones, a story that moves slowly, like waves against the shore. As the sound of a quiet fire crackles nearby and the night settles in, you might start to feel your body sink deeper into calmness. This is a gentle journey through one of history's calmest mysteries, the beginning of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Before we begin, where are you listening from tonight? What time is it there? Maybe it's late, and your eyelids are already growing heavy. Before we step further into this quiet story, if you enjoy calm tales like this, you can press like and subscribe. Not now, just later, maybe after you've drifted into sleep. Now, let's step softly back in time, to a moment that feels half forgotten, the summer of 1587. Imagine the sea stretching endlessly, the wind cool against your face. A small wooden ship rocks gently near the shore. The people aboard have traveled far, across dangerous waters, to reach a place they've only seen on maps. As the boats touch the sand, the settlers step carefully onto the island. Their boots sink slightly into the wet earth. The sound of gulls fades as they walk inland, surrounded by the scent of pine and salt. The forest ahead seems endless, but also full of promise. The air is heavy with the feeling of new beginnings. They call this place Roanoke, their new home, their hope. But standing on that quiet shore, most of them can't imagine how fragile this hope truly is. For now, there's peace. The sky glows faintly orange from the setting sun, and the soft waves touch the wooden hulls of their boats like gentle hands. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughs. A woman hums quietly as she arranges baskets. The men gather near the water line, marking the area where their new homes will stand. They're tired but hopeful, warmed by the thought of rest after months at sea. It's the kind of hope that glows quietly, not loud or proud, but steady. As the night begins to fall, a campfire flickers near the trees. Sparks rise and disappear into the cool sky. The settlers sit in small circles, eating simple food, listening to the rhythm of the waves. For a moment, the island feels like a dream, untouched, waiting to be shaped. If you're feeling your mind start to slow down, that's okay. Let it. Let your breathing match the tide, in and out. Just like those settlers, finding their calm after a long journey. This story doesn't rush. It moves like the sea itself, patient, endless, and quiet. By the second evening, the settlers begin exploring deeper into the island. They see tall oaks, sandy dunes, and endless waterways glistening under sunlight. Everything looks alive, yet strangely empty. The air is thick with the hum of insects, the whisper of wind. Roanoke feels both welcoming and unknown, a place that seems to breathe on its own. John White, the leader of the colony, sketches the landscape carefully in his notebook. Every tree, every riverbank. He's not just mapping land, he's capturing a moment of hope. He doesn't know that this place will one day become a question whispered through centuries. The settlers build their first wooden houses using timber from nearby trees. The sound of axes echoes softly through the forest. There's laughter between the work, a fragile sense of community beginning to take root. The colony starts to take shape, slowly, peacefully. At night, the fire burns again. The settlers gather close, the stars stretching above them in perfect silence. The ocean glows faintly in the moonlight. In that stillness, they feel small, but not afraid. The night air feels clean and endless, wrapping around them like a blanket. If you've drifted a little since the last few moments, that's all right. Just breathe and stay with the rhythm. Every story, even one filled with mystery, begins softly. And this one, it begins with calm seas, steady hearts, and quiet hopes that will echo far beyond this small island. Days pass gently. The settlers plant seeds, gather water, and explore. The rhythm of life feels simple. Morning light, quiet work, evening fires. But beneath that calm, there's a feeling, the sense that this peace can't last forever. The island listens. It remembers. And soon, it will fall silent again. Before we move deeper into that silence, let yourself rest for a moment. The fire is still burning softly in your imagination. The waves are still rolling. Everything is okay. You're safe. You're here, drifting gently between history and sleep. Morning returns slowly to Roanoke. The air is cool and grey before the sun breaks through the clouds. The settlers wake to the sound of waves and distant birds. The fire from last night has turned to soft ash, still warm to the touch. John White walks quietly through the small camp, thinking of everything still left to do. There is comfort in the routine, in the small, steady sounds of life beginning again. Some of the settlers venture inland, following narrow paths between tall pines. They move carefully, marking trees to find their way back. The forest feels endless, the air heavy with the scent of moss and salt. Each step echoes slightly, as if the island is listening. They don't know yet that one day, these same woods will grow over everything they've built. By the shoreline, others gather shells and driftwood. A few men repair the boats, tightening ropes, mending small cracks. The sound of tools against would carry softly on the breeze. Nothing feels rushed. Every action is part of something larger: survival, belonging, the quiet rhythm of starting again. If you're still awake, try to imagine that rhythm. The calm repetition of daily life. The comfort of routine. It's slow and steady, like breathing. Like waves against sand. You don't need to think too hard. Just listen. Weeks pass. The settlers have built a handful of wooden houses now, rough but sturdy. Smoke drifts lazily from their fires during the day. Children play near the trees, chasing each other through tall grass. The colony begins to feel alive, fragile but real. At night, the sound of the sea becomes a lullaby. The settlers sit near the fire, sharing small stories from home. Their laughter is soft, their words slow, almost sleepy. The stars above them shimmer quietly. Everything feels still, as if the island itself is pausing to listen. Sometimes, John White looks out over the ocean, watching the dark horizon. He thinks about England, about the people who trusted him to lead. He wonders if the sea will ever bring more ships, more supplies, more connection to the world they left behind. The thought fades, replaced by the hum of insects and the whisper of waves. The nights grow longer. The air cools. Food becomes harder to find. The settlers begin to notice how thin the soil is, how quickly their supplies are disappearing. Still, they work, quietly and faithfully. They believe that help will come, perhaps not tomorrow, but soon. If your eyes are growing heavy, you can let them close for a moment. Let your breathing slow. Imagine that same quiet determination, the way people can hold hope, even in the middle of nowhere. That quiet strength is something timeless, something peaceful to fall asleep to. One evening, the colony gathers again around the fire. The ocean is calm, the stars hidden behind drifting clouds. A soft wind moves through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. No one speaks much. There's comfort in the silence, the kind of silence that only comes when everyone understands what cannot be said. John White stands near the shore, listening to the water. He feels both proud and uncertain. He knows that he must soon return to England to gather more supplies. The thought of leaving this small, fragile world behind fills him with quiet worry. But he also knows it's the only way the colony can survive. He promises the settlers he'll return quickly. He promises he won't be gone long. The settlers nod, trusting him, though the sea between them and home feels impossibly wide. They don't know that when he returns, everything will be gone. For now, though, the island sleeps. The waves touch the shore in soft rhythm. The fire burns low, casting slow-moving shadows on the sand. Somewhere, a child yawns, a mother hums a tune, and the night stretches endlessly overhead. If you've made it this far, let your body rest a little deeper. The story will continue another time, but for now, it's enough to know that the world is quiet, the ocean steady, and history itself seems to breathe softly in the dark. As you drift towards sleep, remember, not all stories need endings right away. Some are meant to settle gently, like ash after a fire. And in that quiet, you can rest too, until the next part of the story calls you back again. The days on Roanoke begin to blur together. Sunrise over the dunes, the soft rhythm of waves, and the steady pulse of quiet work. The settlers have started to shape their new home. What was once only wilderness now carries the faint traces of human hands. Wooden fences, small gardens, smoke rising gently from campfires. There's a fragile kind of beauty in the effort itself. Each morning, they wake to the sound of seabirds. The air is cool, with a soft mist that hangs over the trees. Men head toward the edge of the forest to gather timber. Women prepare food or tend to the seeds planted in the sandy soil. Children laugh near the water, chasing the tide and leaving their footprints on the shore. The colony grows slowly, not with grand moments, but with quiet persistence. A new roof finished here, a small bridge there. Each day adds another thread to the fragile web of life they're weaving on this island. The settlers don't have much, but they have each other, and for now, that's enough. John White often watches the colony from a distance, sketchbook in hand. He draws everything: the coastline, the homes, the people working under the sun. His drawings aren't just for record, they are acts of hope. Every line he makes seems to whisper that this place can last, that it can become something greater. At night, when the work ends, the colony glows softly under torchlight. The sound of laughter drifts between homes. The settlers share simple meals, telling stories about England, about family, about dreams of the future. The air smells of salt and smoke, and for a moment, everyone feels safe. The island itself seems to breathe with them. The wind moves through the trees like a sigh. Crickets sing, and the sea hums in rhythm with the fire. It's easy to imagine this could be the start of something lasting, the beginning of a new chapter for humankind. But life here is not easy. The soil is dry, and their first crops struggle to grow. Fresh water is scarce, and their supplies from England are slowly running out. The settlers begin to ration their food. Meals become smaller, voices quieter. The laughter of the first days fades into the sounds of work and worry. Still, they hold on. There's something deeply human in that, to plant again, to rebuild, to hope even when the odds are uncertain. Each sunrise feels like a small promise that maybe today will be a little better. And as they rise to greet the day, they keep believing that help will come soon. The children still play by the water, but now their games are quieter. The parents watch with tired eyes, knowing how thin their strength has become. Yet in the evenings, they still gather around the fire, their voices soft, their stories slower, like a melody fading into the sea breeze. Sometimes, when the wind shifts, John White thinks he can hear England, the faint sound of home carried across the water. He knows that the sea separates them from everything familiar, but he also knows that this place, with all its struggles, is where history is quietly being written. The settlers talk often about the future. They speak of harvests that will fill their storehouses, of ships that will arrive with fresh supplies, of letters they'll send back to loved ones. Each word is soft, but filled with longing. It's hope that keeps them moving, quiet, patient, unbroken hope. If you listen closely, you can almost hear that hope in the sounds of the island. The rhythmic chopping of wood, the crackle of a fire, the whisper of waves folding over themselves. It's the kind of sound that makes time feel slower, almost peaceful, even in hardship. The nights grow warmer. Lanterns sway gently in the breeze. The settlers sit in silence more often now, watching the flames dance. There's comfort in the repetition, the same stars above, the same sound of water below. Even when the future feels far away, the moment still feels full, still alive. Somewhere in the stillness, you might start to feel it too, that deep calm that comes when nothing moves quickly. The story slows down, the air thickens with quiet, and the world feels smaller, softer. Everything that matters is right here. A fire, a few kind faces, and the endless whisper of the sea. The colony of Roanoke continues to build its fragile dream under that whispering sky. A dream not of gold or glory, but of peace, a place to live, to rest, to belong. And though history will remember their disappearance, for now, they are still here, breathing, working, hoping, surrounded by the gentle hum of the world beginning again. Morning light spills over the ocean like liquid gold. The settlers rise slowly, stretching their weary limbs. The night air still clings to the ground, cool and damp. There's a quiet calm in the early hours, a brief peace before the weight of another day. They begin their routines almost automatically now. Every motion feels practiced, patient. Survival has become a rhythm, and that rhythm is the colony's heartbeat. John White studies the sky that morning. He thinks of how far they've come, and how fragile everything still feels. The sea beyond the horizon seems both beautiful and cruel. It gives, but it also takes. He wonders how much longer they can last before the island demands something from them. Food, strength, or perhaps the hope that has carried them this far. The gardens grow poorly. The settlers dig into dry soil, hoping the next patch will be better. Their hands blister, their faces burn under the sun. They speak less now, their words reserved for necessity. Even the laughter of children has softened, replaced by the rustle of wind through brittle leaves. Still, they endure, holding tightly to the small things that bring comfort: a bowl of clean water, a familiar song, the sound of waves at dusk. In the evenings, the settlers sit together, their faces dimly lit by the fire. The flames reflect in their tired eyes. They share stories not of adventure or wealth, but of home, of gardens that grew easily, of neighbors they once knew, of familiar streets now half forgotten. Their voices fade with the crackling wood, and the fire becomes the only thing still speaking. As weeks pass, the tension grows. The settlers have written letters, sealed them carefully, and set them aside for the next ship, but no ship comes. The ocean stretches endlessly, calm but indifferent. Some look out to sea each morning, as if willing a sail to appear. None does. The silence begins to weigh on them more than hunger. One night, John White gathers a small group near the shore. They speak quietly, so as not to wake the others. He tells them what he's been thinking, that he must go back to England, bring supplies, and return before the colony can fail. The decision is heavy, but it's the only choice. His voice is calm, yet his eyes betray worry. He knows how far that ocean stretches. The settlers agree, but their faces are solemn. They know what it means to be left behind, surrounded by wilderness, with little to depend on. They nod, trusting him, even as their hearts tighten. The fire beside them pops softly, scattering sparks that fade into the night air. For a moment, the sea seems to listen. The next morning, preparations begin quietly. White checks the ship, counts what little food he'll carry, and gives careful instructions to those staying behind. The settlers move slowly, as if time itself has thickened. There's no anger, only acceptance, a shared understanding that survival often requires parting ways. The sun is high when John White finally steps into the small boat. The settlers gather near the shore, their hands raised in farewell. The ocean glitters like polished glass, and for a moment, it almost looks welcoming. The wind carries the faint sound of someone whispering a prayer for safety, not as worship, but as hope born from fear. The sails catch wind, and the boat drifts away. The island grows smaller behind him. From the deck, White watches the settlement fade, the wooden homes, the smoke from fires, the shapes of people waving until they blur into the horizon. He feels the weight of responsibility pressing against his chest. He promises himself he will return quickly. As night falls, the colony grows still again. The waves return to their soft rhythm. The fires burn low. The settlers go to sleep under the wide, silent sky. They do not know how long they will wait. They do not know that their story, their dream, will soon become one of the quietest mysteries in all of history. If your breathing has slowed with the rhythm of the waves, stay there a moment. Let your mind rest on that image, the tiny colony under a vast, endless sky. No answers yet. No endings. Only the sound of the sea and the faint glow of a fire holding back the dark. For now, that's enough. The days after John White's departure settle into a quiet pattern. The settlers wake with the sunrise, though their mornings feel heavier now. The leader is gone, and with him, a sense of direction. Still, life must continue. The ocean still moves. The wind still hums through the trees. They cling to routine, building, cooking, gathering, because in the rhythm of work, they find a small sense of safety. The soil grows stubborn. The settlers plant again, but their seeds dry before they can root. Water from the wells turns brackish, leaving a bitter taste on the tongue. Every small task, cooking, cleaning, mending, becomes harder. The days stretch longer, and time begins to lose meaning. The heat presses down from above, relentless and unkind. Some settlers fall ill from exhaustion, their faces pale, their bodies weak. Others work in silence, refusing to stop. It isn't courage, exactly, it's necessity. To rest too long would mean facing the thought of what happens if help never returns. At night, the campfire burns lower. The settlers sit closer together, seeking warmth and comfort in silence. The laughter that once filled these evenings has faded completely. Now there is only the crackling of wood and the soft rustle of wind moving through the dark forest behind them. The firelight flickers on their tired faces, revealing the quiet strength of people who keep going, even when they are afraid. Sometimes, a child asks when John White will return. The parents answer softly, "Soon." They say it even when they no longer believe it. Hope becomes something small, not a bright flame, but an ember, flickering faintly at the edge of the night. Days blur into one another. The settlers mark time not by weeks, but by storms, by hunger, by moments of stillness. They learn to listen to the island, to the sound of trees groaning in the wind, to the movement of water through narrow inlets. Every sound feels louder now, as if the world is speaking to them in ways they can't quite understand. If you're listening closely, breathe with them. The air feels heavy, the night vast. You can almost hear the waves folding over the shore, steady and calm. Even in struggle, there's a strange sort of peace, the acceptance that comes when all that's left is endurance. Food becomes scarce. The settlers stretch their supplies as far as they can. They share small portions of grain, divide dried fish, and boil roots gathered from the woods. Every meal is a reminder of how fragile life has become. Yet no one complains. They've grown quiet, focused, almost reverent toward the small things that keep them alive. When storms arrive, the colony holds its breath. The wind tears through the trees, and rain batters the roofs. Fires sputter and die. The settlers shelter together in the dark, listening to the thunder roll across the sea. The world outside feels enormous, too large for their small, flickering lives. When the storm passes, they rebuild in silence. Broken fences are lifted. Roofs are patched. Every action is deliberate, almost meditative. In this slow repair, there's a strange calmness, the understanding that survival is its own form of grace. As weeks turn into months, some settlers begin to change. They walk slower, speak less, their eyes always distant. Others find small joys in their routines, polishing a tool, braiding rope, watching the sunrise. Life becomes simpler, narrower, focused entirely on the present moment. There are nights when the sea glows faintly under the moonlight. The settlers stand at the water's edge, staring into that pale shimmer. No one speaks. The silence feels alive, not threatening, just vast. It's as if the island is watching, waiting with them. If your mind has started to drift, let it. Let the rhythm of this place wash over you, the rise and fall of the ocean, the steady breath of people holding on. Their story isn't fast. It's quiet, patient, and deeply human. The kind that feels like the slow turning of time itself. By the end of another long day, the colony gathers once more around the fire. Their faces glow softly in the amber light. There's no conversation now, only the shared comfort of presence. Above them, stars stretch endlessly, distant, unchanging, and silent. The island settles into stillness again, carrying their hope like a faint whisper in the dark. The days grow shorter now. The sun lingers lower on the horizon, and the evenings come sooner. The settlers can feel the air shifting, a coolness creeping in that hints at the changing season. They wrap themselves in what little fabric they have left, their clothes worn thin by work and weather. The sound of the sea no longer feels like a song, but a reminder of how far they are from home. Each morning begins the same way: quiet footsteps, soft voices, the faint crackle of rekindled fire. They move slowly, conserving energy. Every bit of effort counts now. The smallest things, a handful of berries, a bucket of fresh water, feel precious. Life is narrowed to its simplest form: breathe, endure, hope. Sometimes, the settlers gather near the water and stare at the horizon together. It's an unspoken ritual, this watching. They search for sails that never appear, for movement on the sea that never comes. The ocean stretches endlessly, vast and indifferent. And still, they look, because hope, once lit, refuses to die completely. If your breathing has slowed, let it follow that rhythm: the fire, the waves, the wind. The world has quieted for them, and it can quiet for you too. This isn't a story of defeat. It's a story of stillness, of people learning to live at the edge of what they understand. One morning, the settlers find that one of their small boats has drifted away during the night. The rope had frayed, the tide had risen, and now the boat is gone. It's a small loss, but it feels enormous. The sea, calm and glimmering, looks almost cruel in its silence. Someone whispers that maybe the island doesn't want them to leave. No one answers. The trees around the settlement begin to encroach, their branches leaning closer each week. Nature moves quietly, reclaiming what was taken. The wooden fences bend under vines. The paths grow narrow and dark. It's as if the island itself is slowly closing its hands around them. And yet, in this quiet encirclement, there is strange peace. The settlers have stopped expecting rescue. They focus only on today: the warmth of firelight, the taste of clean water, the comfort of being together for another night. The past feels far away, and the future even farther. When rain falls, it comes softly, like a sigh. The drops patter against the roofs and mix with the salt of the sea breeze. The settlers sit inside their small shelters, listening to the rhythm. The rain sounds like time itself, slow, steady, without hurry. In that sound, some find calm, others find sorrow. Months pass without change. The settlers mark the passing of time by the stars now. When they lie on their backs at night, the sky feels closer than the earth beneath them. It's a strange comfort to think that even here, at the edge of the world, the stars still look the same as they did back home. By now, their faces are leaner, their voices quieter. But there's still kindness between them. They share what little they have, help each other without being asked. In that small compassion, they find meaning. The colony survives not through strength, but through gentleness, through patience in the face of endless uncertainty. When dawn comes again, it's pale and grey. The island looks almost dreamlike, covered in a light mist. Smoke rises from a few small fires. The settlers stir, moving slowly, wordlessly. They have stopped counting days. They simply live them, one after another, carried forward by something unseen, a will to endure that outlasts reason. As you rest now, let that same quiet strength settle into you. The sound of waves still moves through this story, soft and unending. The colony remains, balanced between hope and silence, between holding on and letting go. Their story drifts like the tide, calm, unresolved, and deeply human. Far across the Atlantic, John White stands at the edge of a crowded English harbour. The air smells of salt and coal, of ships waiting to leave and others returning broken by storms. He has come back to gather help for the people he left behind on Roanoke, but England is no longer calm. War clouds the nation. The seas are dangerous. Every ship is needed elsewhere. He writes letters, pleads with captains, and waits for weeks that stretch into months. The sound of cannons echoes from distant coasts, and every harbour whispers the same story: battles, losses, fear. John White's mission becomes a small voice in a world too loud with war. Yet every night, as the fires burn in the distance, he thinks of the colony, of faces he promised to return to, and of the quiet island waiting across the sea. The months turn into years. Ships leave for battle, but none for rescue. John White grows older, his hair touched with grey from worry. He spends each morning walking by the shore, scanning the horizon as if expecting a miracle. England's attention is fixed elsewhere, and the fate of Roanoke slips like a forgotten echo into the noise of history. But he does not forget. In his heart, the colony still lives, their campfires still burning somewhere far away. Finally, when the war eases, John White convinces a ship's captain to take him back. The sea, however, has its own plans. Storms rise suddenly that summer, and their journey begins under a sky heavy with dark clouds. The wind howls, the waves crash, and the ship creaks under the strain. The sailors shout against the storm, their words lost in the roaring wind. John White clings to the railing, praying quietly for the safety of all aboard. Days blur into nights. Rain lashes the deck, and cold water seeps through every seam. The men sleep where they can, their bodies swaying with the rhythm of the storm. Lightning flashes across the sky, turning the sea white for a brief moment before darkness swallows it again. Through it all, John White keeps his gaze fixed eastward, toward the place that once gave him purpose, now lost somewhere beyond the horizon. When the storm finally breaks, the sea calms into an eerie stillness. The sky turns pale, and mist clings to the water. The sailors move quietly, exhausted but grateful. John White stands at the bow, his clothes soaked, his face lined with fatigue. The silence after the chaos feels almost sacred. He whispers to himself that perhaps the storm was a test, one last trial before he can find his people again. If you're listening closely, breathe in that silence. The storm has passed. The waves are calm. The ship glides slowly across the grey water, carrying with it a fragile hope, a promise kept alive by nothing more than memory and patience. Every creak of wood feels like a heartbeat, reminding him that he is still moving forward. Weeks pass as they travel across the vast Atlantic. Food grows scarce, and the crew grows restless. The sea offers no mercy, only endless distance. Some days, there is no wind at all, and the sails hang limp, the ship floating helplessly in place. John White spends these days sketching quietly, filling his journal with drawings of clouds, waves, and the faces of sailors who remind him of the people he left behind. At night, he dreams of Roanoke. He dreams of the firelight flickering through the trees, of the laughter of children, of calm nights under endless stars. Each dream feels real enough to reach out and touch. But when he wakes, there is only the sea, wide, empty, and indifferent. Hope and doubt mix together like water and salt, impossible to separate. The captain tells him they are close now. Land should appear within days. The men cheer softly, though their voices sound tired. John White stands near the bow again, staring into the horizon. He wonders what he will find, if the colony has grown, if his people are well, if they will run to greet him. His heart beats faster, filled with the quiet joy of almost home. But as the days stretch on, the wind slows. A thick fog rolls in, turning the sea into a grey wall. The ship moves carefully through the haze, guided only by instinct. The world feels smaller here, wrapped in mist and uncertainty. John White grips the railing, listening to the sound of the waves slapping gently against the hull. He whispers the island's name under his breath, as if calling to it might bring it closer. If your eyes are growing heavy, imagine the rhythm of the waves. The ship rocks gently, the sails flutter softly, and the world feels still again. Even in uncertainty, there's peace, the kind that comes from moving forward through the unknown, step by step, wave by wave. At last, the fog begins to thin. Through the grey, a faint line of land appears, distant but unmistakable. Roanoke. The word forms in John White's mind like a heartbeat. He feels the weight of years fall from his shoulders. The sailors begin to cheer, their voices weak but relieved. The island waits in silence, the trees dark against the pale sky. As the ship draws closer, something strange settles in John White's chest, a mix of relief and unease. The island looks familiar, but too quiet. No smoke rises. No movement stirs. Only the whisper of wind through the trees greets them. The sea, calm once more, feels almost too calm, like the deep breath before a truth that has waited too long to be spoken. As the ship anchors offshore, John White feels the world slow around him. The water is calm, the air heavy with the scent of rain and pine. He stands silently for a long time, staring toward the island that once echoed with laughter and life. From this distance, it looks peaceful, untouched, but something in that stillness feels wrong. When the small boats are lowered, he climbs into one, gripping the wooden edge as the oars dip into the water. Each stroke brings him closer to shore, but also deeper into dread. The beach ahead lies empty, its sand smooth and undisturbed. The sounds of waves and gulls fill the silence where human voices should be. The men drag the boats onto land. No one speaks. John White looks around slowly, his eyes scanning the familiar landscape. The trees have grown thicker, and wild grass covers what used to be clear paths. The wooden palisade still stands, though weathered and grey. Time has moved forward, but the people are gone. He walks toward the settlement. The houses are there, or what's left of them. Roofs have caved in. Doors hang open, creaking softly in the wind. It feels as though everyone simply vanished mid-sentence, leaving behind an unfinished world. He calls out, but his voice carries no answer, only the echo of the sea replying softly. One of the sailors points toward a post at the edge of the village. Something is carved into it. John White walks closer, his steps slow and heavy. The word Croatoan is etched deep into the wood, each letter deliberate. He stares at it, the wind brushing past him, carrying no other clue. That single word becomes the heartbeat of the silence. For a long moment, no one moves. The men glance at one another, waiting for direction. John White kneels, tracing the letters with his fingertips. It's a message, but one he cannot fully understand. Relief flickers briefly. It's not a sign of attack or harm, but then fades into uncertainty. Where did they go? Why? And why leave nothing else? The colony feels like a ghost of itself. Broken fences, scattered tools, a few signs of gardening long since overgrown. There are no graves, no signs of struggle, no remnants of panic. Everything has simply stopped. The island breathes quietly around them, as though it too remembers the absence. John White searches through the remains of his own home. The walls are intact, though bare. His belongings are gone. In the corner lies a single rusted spoon, something left behind by accident, or maybe on purpose. He picks it up, turning it in his hand. It's ordinary, but in that moment, it feels like the last connection to the people he came back for. He walks to the edge of the woods, calling out again. His voice fades into the trees. Nothing stirs except a few leaves carried by the breeze. The forest looms quietly, its shadows deep and endless. He imagines footsteps there, faint laughter, the echo of a campfire, but there is only silence. If you're still awake, take a slow breath here. The sound of waves, the soft wind through the trees, they're all that remain. This part of the story isn't frightening. It's only quiet. The kind of quiet that feels ancient, gentle, and final. John White gathers his men near the fire pit that once marked the heart of the colony. They stand in a circle, surrounded by the whispering trees. He tells them what the carving means, that the Croatoan island lies not far from here, that maybe the settlers went there seeking safety. He wants to search for them, but storms begin to form offshore, dark and unrelenting. The captain urges retreat. Reluctantly, they return to the boat. John White looks back one last time as the wind picks up and the first drops of rain touch the sand. The island stands motionless, the word Croatoan gleaming faintly in the grey light. He feels the ache of unanswered questions, the kind that time itself refuses to solve. The sea welcomes them back with soft waves. As the ship drifts away, Roanoke grows smaller behind them. The mist returns, swallowing the trees, the beach, the memory of voices. John White stands at the railing long after the island disappears, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He knows he will never return. That night, the waves are calm again. The moonlight spills across the deck like silver dust. John White closes his eyes and listens to the sea, wondering if somewhere out there, the people he cared for are still alive, perhaps in another place, another time, under the same endless stars. And as you listen now, let that image linger, the ship fading into the dark, the island silent once more. The mystery of Roanoke doesn't shout, it whispers. It lives quietly in the space between history and memory, between truth and the gentle forgetting that comes with time. The island of Roanoke rests beneath a grey morning sky. The waves slide quietly against the shore, washing over footprints that fade almost as soon as they appear. Everything that once belonged to the settlers is still there, the houses, the tools, the marks of their labour, but without the people, it feels like a painting that's lost its colour. The stillness is complete. Even the wind seems to hesitate. When John White closes his eyes, he can almost hear them, the faint echo of laughter, the hammering of nails, the sound of voices carried by the sea breeze. But when he opens them, there is only wind and dust. The past feels close enough to touch, yet impossibly far away. He kneels near the ashes of an old fire pit. The ground still smells faintly of smoke, long gone but not forgotten. He touches the blackened soil, feeling the cool texture of history beneath his fingertips. For a moment, it feels as though the island is breathing again, just for him, a sigh through the trees, a soft reminder that nothing ever truly disappears, it just changes shape. He stops at a clearing where the grass grows wild. There's a faint indentation in the soil, perhaps from a tent or a cart long gone. He kneels, pressing his hand to the earth. The ground feels cool and solid, a reminder that life once moved here, that feet once walked this path, and that time has simply folded over them. The sky above begins to darken. A gentle wind sweeps through the branches, carrying the scent of rain. John White lifts his gaze and watches the first drops fall through the canopy. They land softly on his coat, on the ground, on the remnants of what was once a dream. The rain doesn't mourn, it simply falls, washing the island clean, as if preparing it for sleep. The men call for him from the shore, their voices muffled by the rain. He takes one last look around. The air feels alive now, charged with something both beautiful and heavy, the kind of quiet that comes only after everything has been said. As he walks back toward the beach, the island seems to fade behind him. The rain blurs the outlines of trees and houses, turning them into soft shapes, half real, half memory. It feels as though the island itself wants to disappear, to slip gently out of sight. By the time he reaches the boat, the wind has calmed again. The rain slows to a drizzle, and the clouds open just enough to let a pale beam of sunlight through. The light touches the sand, the wooden posts, and then fades. The island of Roanoke returns to silence, patient, watchful, waiting. The ship rocks gently as John White steps back on board. The sails are wet, heavy with rain, and the men work in silence. The island drifts away behind them, growing smaller with each passing wave. No one speaks. Even the captain keeps his eyes forward, as if looking back might disturb the fragile peace left on shore. The ocean accepts them quietly, its rhythm slow and endless. White leans against the railing, the wind cool on his face. He watches Roanoke fade into a blur of green and grey. The rain has stopped, but mist still hangs low over the water. The world feels suspended, caught between past and present, memory and forgetting. Somewhere in that space, he feels the weight of all the voices lost to time. As night falls, the crew lights small lanterns across the deck. Their glow reflects on the waves like scattered stars. John White sits near one of them, staring into the flame. The fire dances in the breeze, fragile yet steady, a reminder that even in silence, something still endures. Not the colony, not the buildings, but the memory of them. The days that follow are peaceful. The sea smooths itself into long, gentle swells. The crew begins to speak again, though softly, as if afraid of waking something sleeping beneath the waves. John White joins them for meals, but his eyes are often distant. He listens, but his mind is still on the island, on the word carved into wood, on faces he can no longer recall clearly. One evening, the captain asks him what he'll tell the people back home. White pauses before answering. "The truth," he says quietly. that I found nothing, and that nothing may be all we are meant to find. The captain nods, understanding without words. Some mysteries don't need answers, they need rest. When the ship finally reaches England, the harbour is alive with noise again, shouting, laughter, the clang of metal and rope. Yet to John White, it all feels distant, muted beneath the echo of the sea. He steps onto the dock and feels the solid ground beneath his boots, but part of him stays out there, beyond the horizon, on an island that no longer belongs to the world. The nights come and go, and he grows older. But the memory of Roanoke never fades completely. Sometimes he dreams of it, the sound of waves, the glow of firelight, the carved word that waited for him like a whisper. In those dreams, the colony is alive again, voices returning softly through the mist. When he wakes, the house is silent, but he smiles. If your breathing has slowed, let it match his, steady and calm. The story is quieter now, the world at rest. There's no need for resolution. History, like the tide, always returns, always retreats. What matters is the stillness it leaves behind. John White's final years pass peacefully. He walks by the shore often, tracing lines in the sand that vanish as the water reaches them. Sometimes he watches the sunset and thinks of the island bathed in that same golden light. It's no longer a place of loss in his mind, only one of memory, of patience, of eternal calm. And so, Roanoke sleeps. The wind still moves through its trees. The waves still kiss its shore. No one knows where the settlers went, but perhaps that's all right. The story has done what stories do. It has become part of the quiet hum of the earth, retold softly across generations, like a lullaby that never quite ends. If your eyes are closing now, let them. The sea is calm, the air gentle, the fire fading low. The story is done for tonight. Somewhere far away, under the same moonlight, the island of Roanoke still waits in silence, peaceful, patient, eternal in its stillness. Long after John White's return, the word carved into that post, Croatoan, continued to echo quietly through the centuries. It wasn't shouted in stories of war or triumph. It was whispered, almost respectfully, like a puzzle that no one was meant to solve too quickly. The word carried the weight of both hope and loss, and it haunted history in the gentlest way possible, like a soft sound that lingers long after the music ends. Historians would spend years trying to understand it. Some imagined that it pointed to a nearby island, a place where the settlers might have gone, seeking safety and new beginnings. Others believed it was a clue, left behind for John White, carved carefully in wood as a silent message. We are alive. We moved on. But the truth, whatever it was, remained quiet, sealed in the soil and sand of time. The island itself never spoke. The forests grew thicker. The old posts fell and were covered in moss. The houses sank into the earth. Yet, the word endured in memory, carried across oceans and generations. It became a story told by candlelight, a name written in fading ink, a question that would drift gently through the corridors of time. If you're listening closely, imagine that word now, not as something frightening, but as something human. Someone carved it with steady hands. Someone took the time to leave a sign, to tell whoever came next that they were not gone without trace. In that single act, there's tenderness, a message of survival, not despair. Over the centuries, many explorers tried to follow that clue. They sailed along the Carolina coast, searched nearby islands, and dug into the earth for answers. They found fragments, bits of pottery, pieces of metal, a few scattered tools. Each discovery was like a whisper from the past, enough to make people lean closer, but never enough to explain. Theories began to form, as quietly as the waves themselves. Some said the settlers had joined nearby indigenous communities, living and learning among them until their lives became one shared rhythm. Others suggested that the colony moved inland, vanishing into the vast wilderness that stretched endlessly beyond the coast. The possibilities were infinite, and all of them soft, plausible, and strangely peaceful. John White's name appeared in records, his notes studied by scholars long after his death. Each word he wrote was weighed carefully, examined for clues he might not have realized he left behind. The more people searched, the less they found. The mystery refused to unfold fully, choosing instead to drift through time like fog on a still morning. The word Croatoan became something larger than the colony itself. It was no longer just a name, but a symbol of endurance, of movement, of humanity's quiet need to be remembered. It carried a strange comfort, too, because even in absence, even in mystery, there was still a trace. They had not vanished completely. They had left a sign. For writers and thinkers who came later, the story of Roanoke became a kind of lullaby, a reminder that history isn't always about what's found, but what's left behind. The silence around that single word became as meaningful as the word itself. It was a mark of life, written in the language of uncertainty. In the centuries that followed, people began to tell the story differently. Some made it tragic, others romantic. But beneath every version was the same soft truth. No one truly knows what happened, and perhaps no one ever will. The mystery's strength lies in that quiet, the same quiet that wrapped the island that day when John White stood alone. There's a strange peace in that kind of mystery. It doesn't chase answers. It lets them rest. The word Croatoan is still spoken now, hundreds of years later, in classrooms, in books, in soft conversations beneath flickering lamps. Every time it's said, the island stirs again for a moment, not with fear, but with memory. Sometimes, the most haunting things in history are not the dark ones. They are the quiet ones, the ones that ask us to listen, not to react. The mystery of Roanoke is like that. It doesn't demand belief or disbelief. It simply invites stillness, reflection, the kind of thinking that comes in the moments before sleep. If your breathing has slowed, stay here a while. The waves are still moving. The forest on Roanoke still sways with the wind. Somewhere, that carved word still lingers, softened by time, but never erased. Like memory itself, it remains, faint, enduring, and peaceful in its unanswered grace. As time passed, the mystery of Roanoke became more than a story. It became a mirror. Each generation looked into it and saw something different. Some saw courage, others loss. Some saw warning, others hope. That's what makes the word Croatoan so strange and beautiful. It doesn't tell you what to think. It lets you decide what it means to you. In the early centuries after the disappearance, sailors spoke of the word as a sign of fate. Explorers mentioned it quietly in their journals, always with a tone of wonder, never fear. For them, it was not a curse. It was a whisper from the past, a reminder that human lives can drift far and still leave a trace behind. Writers began to tell the story again and again. They painted the settlers in their minds, standing by the shore, carving the word into wood before walking away together, not as victims, but as travelers continuing their journey somewhere unseen. Each retelling added a little warmth to the mystery, softening it from tragedy into something almost gentle. If you can picture it, imagine those final moments. The waves brushing their feet, the sound of gulls calling above, the hands carving letters, steady and deliberate. Maybe they weren't saying goodbye. Maybe they were leaving directions, a way for someone, someday, to find them again. That thought alone brings peace to the story. As centuries turned, the word appeared in poems, books, and whispers of legend. It carried the weight of both fact and fable, walking the thin line between history and dream. And yet, it never lost its calmness. Even when surrounded by speculation, it remained still, like the surface of a quiet lake disturbed only by ripples of curiosity. Scholars searched archives, studied ancient maps, compared soil samples, and analyzed artifacts. Each discovery brought them closer and yet no closer at all. The truth, it seemed, was hiding not in the evidence, but in the silence around it. The quiet between the facts became the real story, the space where imagination and reality meet. If your mind has begun to drift, let it. This is where stories like this are meant to take you, into that soft place between knowing and dreaming. The mystery of Roanoke isn't loud. It's like a low hum at the edge of your thoughts, something you can't quite touch, but feel completely. Even now, centuries later, people visit the place where the colony once stood. They walk through the trees, listen to the ocean, and look for signs in the sand. Some say the air feels different there, lighter, quieter, almost respectful, as if the island remembers every footstep, every voice, every breath that once filled its silence. The word Croatoan remains carved in the story of humanity itself. It has outlasted empires, wars, and generations. It has become less about where people went, and more about the fact that they lived, that they tried, they hoped, they endured. And that, in itself, is enough. As night falls again in this story, the island of Roanoke lies under a silver sky. The wind moves through the grass, carrying the same rhythm it did centuries ago. The sea glows faintly, and for a moment, it feels as if time itself has stopped listening, just to breathe. The word still lingers there, quiet and patient. If you listen closely, you might hear it too, not as sound, but as feeling. A reminder that every life leaves a mark, even when it's unseen. Every story leaves a trace, even when it's unfinished. And sometimes, that trace is enough to be remembered forever. The mystery of Roanoke is not about loss, but about continuity. The settlers are gone, but their presence still ripples across time, carried by one carved word and the endless curiosity it inspires. It reminds us that silence can speak, and that history, when left untold, can still hold peace. As you drift toward rest, let that word fade softly in your mind. Not as a riddle, not as an answer, but as a whisper, calm, steady, and kind. The ocean hums, the night deepens, and history falls asleep once more, wrapped gently in the silence it left behind. And there, within that silence, the story waits, patient as the tide, peaceful as breath, eternal only in memory. Croatoan. The word had been carved, the island left in silence, and the world began to wonder. Whispers of Roanoke spread slowly at first, from sailors' lips to tavern corners, from letters to royal courts. Each retelling carried its own shape, its own shadow of truth. The mystery became a living thing, stretching far beyond the island, softly taking root in the imagination of generations. The first theory was a gentle one. Some believed the settlers had simply moved, that they followed rivers inland, found fertile ground, and built new homes. Perhaps they lived quietly somewhere among the forests, safe and self-sustained. It was a comforting thought, the kind that made the silence easier to bear. It painted the lost colony not as vanished, but as transformed. Another whisper suggested that they sought refuge with the nearby native tribes. The idea was peaceful, two worlds meeting, learning, surviving together. The settlers may have laid down their tools and taken up new customs, finding harmony in the rhythms of nature. To many, it was a hopeful ending, one that replaced tragedy with quiet coexistence. But other voices told stories more haunting. They imagined storms sweeping across the island, washing away every sign of life. Or perhaps famine struck so deeply that the colony scattered, each person walking into the wilderness in search of survival. These theories carried sadness, but also respect, for those who endured until they could no longer fight the elements. If you're listening closely, notice how the tone of these whispers changes like the tide. Hope one moment, sorrow the next. It's how humanity remembers what it cannot explain. We fill the silence with our hearts, weaving emotion into the gaps that time leaves behind. Over the years, the mystery of Roanoke became a kind of mirror for people's own fears and dreams. Explorers saw in it the fragility of ambition, how easily great plans can fade into wind and water. Poets found beauty in its emptiness, the way the colony's absence left space for imagination to bloom. Historians, meanwhile, kept searching, their pens scratching quietly through the centuries. John White's journals were studied line by line, his drawings preserved like sacred relics of memory. Every sketch of a tree, every note of geography was treated like a possible clue. But no matter how closely they looked, the picture remained incomplete, like a song missing its final note. The silence between his words became its own kind of testimony. As time went on, new generations added their own theories. Some claimed to find traces, coins buried deep in the soil, fragments of pottery, marks on stones. Each small discovery sparked excitement, yet none provided an answer. The mystery seemed to resist being solved, as if it wished to remain untouched, preserved in its quiet dignity. If your breathing has slowed, let the rhythm of these discoveries rock you gently. History doesn't always reveal itself all at once. Sometimes it prefers to whisper, to hint, to wait for the right listener. Roanoke's story is like that, a secret kept politely by time. In the early 19th century, travelers to the region spoke of people with grey eyes and fair hair among the local tribes, details that felt out of place, too specific to ignore. Some believed these were descendants of the settlers, living generations later in peace. The idea caught on, not because it was proven, but because it was kind, a version of history that offered closure without sadness. Writers began to romanticize the story. They described the lost colony as a dream swallowed by nature, not destroyed by it. The settlers became symbols of endurance, of innocence, of humanity's endless search for belonging. The mystery wasn't about disappearance anymore. It was about transformation. If you close your eyes, you can almost see it, the island overgrown with trees, but beneath the roots, traces of walls and hearths. Somewhere in the distance, echoes of laughter, faint and familiar, drifting through the wind. Not ghosts, but memories, resting quietly, content to remain unseen. By the mid-1800s, Roanoke had become a favorite tale for quiet evenings. Parents told it to their children not as horror, but as history that hums gently with wonder. It was the kind of story that lingered softly in the imagination, a bedtime thought that didn't disturb, only invited reflection. Archaeologists continued their work, brushing away layers of soil with delicate hands. Each fragment they uncovered carried weight, not just of evidence, but of hope. The search itself became a ritual, an act of respect for those who came before. The colony might have vanished, but its story kept people connected across centuries. And somewhere between those discoveries and the endless wandering, the truth began to matter less. What endured instead was the feeling, the stillness of the island, the mystery of the missing, the peace of not knowing. It was as though Roanoke had transformed from a place into an idea, a soft reminder that not every story needs an ending. If your eyes are growing heavy, let them. The ocean is calm again, and the voices of the past have quieted into whispers. They don't ask to be solved, only to be remembered, gently, in the quiet between waking and sleep. As the years turned into centuries, the story of Roanoke began to drift farther from fact and closer to legend. Each retelling softened its edges a little more. People stopped asking, "What happened?" and started asking, "Why does it still matter?" The answer, quietly, was because it never demanded fear, only reflection. Roanoke had become a place where imagination could rest. In the still corners of libraries, writers would pause over maps of the old colony, tracing their fingers over faded coastlines. They didn't see loss anymore. They saw persistence, the way life continues, even when it disappears from sight. The colony's silence became a kind of comfort, reminding the curious that not all mysteries exist to be solved. Some are meant to soothe us with their unending calm. If you picture it now, imagine the settlers not as vanished, but simply moved beyond our reach. Perhaps they walked inland through tall pines, their footprints slowly covered by leaves. Maybe they built homes near the rivers, living quietly, raising families under new stars. It's a thought without proof, but full of peace, the kind of ending that lets history exhale. The 20th century brought new voices, historians, explorers, scientists, each armed with tools the past never had. They studied soil, mapped the island, examined every fragment of bone or pottery found nearby. Each result was intriguing, but never final. The mystery stayed balanced, like a candle that burns endlessly without melting away. Even television and documentaries added their interpretations, but they, too, couldn't change the tone of the story. It remained what it had always been, gentle, steady, impossible to fully hold. The mystery refused to become loud or sensational. It stayed quiet, like the slow rhythm of waves brushing the shore. If your thoughts are beginning to drift, let them follow that rhythm. You don't need to chase the truth. It's already resting, softly, beneath layers of time. The colony's calmness has outlived every attempt to disturb it. That might be its greatest secret of all. In small museums, behind glass, fragments of Roanoke sit quietly. A rusted nail, a piece of pottery, a weathered coin. None of them speak loudly. They just sit there, patient, as if aware they don't need to explain themselves. Visitors lean close, staring through the glass, not to find answers, but to feel closer to the people who once touched these same things. Outside, the coastline still hums with the same ocean wind. The trees whisper the same soft music they did centuries ago. Every sound feels familiar, like the background of an old lullaby that never really ended. The world has changed, but Roanoke's silence remains exactly as it was, full of presence, not emptiness. Some say that's what makes it so lasting. The mystery invites peace, not fear. It reminds us that even in the vastness of history, there are stories that stay humble, stories that don't reach for grand endings, but settle quietly into memory. Imagine, for a moment, walking that same island path at dusk. The air cool, the light golden, the waves soft against the shore. You can almost sense them, the settlers, the dreams, the echoes of ordinary life. They aren't gone. They're simply out of view, continuing their story somewhere time no longer measures. If your breathing has slowed, stay here with that image. The stillness, the peace, the realization that some mysteries are not for solving, but for holding gently, like sea glass polished smooth by years of motion. When night comes again over Roanoke, the stars rise exactly where they always have. The wind sighs through the pines, carrying the same rhythm, the same hush. It's as though the island itself is protecting its story, keeping it safe from being undone. The word Croatoan lingers only in memory now, but that's enough. In the end, perhaps that's the lesson Roanoke leaves behind, that silence can be sacred, and the unknown can be kind. History doesn't always fade because it's forgotten. Sometimes it rests because it's complete. And somewhere, under the stars and the hum of waves, the whispers of that lost colony continue, gentle, unbroken, and endlessly calm. If your eyes are closing, let them. The island is quiet again. The theories have softened into dreams. The story doesn't need more, it just needs rest. Tonight, so do you. Time moves quietly on Roanoke. Seasons pass without witness, the trees growing taller, the ocean smoothing away every sign of human touch. What was once a settlement slowly becomes forest again. The walls collapse, covered in moss. The paths vanish beneath layers of leaves. The wind carries away the last traces of smoke. Nature, patient and gentle, begins to reclaim her rhythm. In the early mornings, mist gathers between the trees, rising like breath from the ground. Birds return to build their nests in the empty beams of old roofs. Vines curl around broken fences, binding them back into the earth. It's as though the island is healing itself, not erasing what was, but wrapping it softly in green silence. The ocean, always nearby, hums its constant song. The waves roll in, not as destroyers, but as caretakers, washing the shore clean with each tide. The beach that once held footprints now glimmers untouched, reflecting light like polished glass. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the rhythm of time, slow, steady, endlessly kind. The forest grows dense. Sunlight filters through the canopy in thin, trembling lines. The ground beneath is soft, layered with years of fallen leaves. Somewhere deep inside, the remains of the old colony lie hidden. Stones, timbers, tools, now part of the living earth. The island doesn't mourn. It remembers. Quietly, without words. If your mind feels calm now, stay with this moment. The sound of rustling leaves, the faint hiss of the tide, they are the same sounds the settlers once heard. Nothing has truly vanished. It has only changed form. The island continues to breathe, and through that breath, it carries the memory of those who came before. As decades pass, travelers arrive and see only wilderness. They walk among trees that whisper softly in the wind, unaware that they tread upon buried walls. The forest gives no sign of what lies beneath. It has no need to reveal its secrets. Some mysteries live better when kept quiet. In time, people begin to speak of the island as haunted, but not in the way of fear, more in reverence. They say the air feels heavier there, as if full of unspoken stories. Some feel comfort in it, others unease, yet all agree that Roanoke holds something special, a presence that hums beneath the stillness, like a faint heartbeat. When night falls, the island transforms again. The trees turn dark silhouettes against a silver moon. The sound of crickets fills the air, joined by the rhythmic rush of waves. The forest glows faintly, the mist reflecting moonlight in soft layers. It feels alive, ancient, and unbothered by time. If you're still awake, take a slow breath. Picture yourself standing there, the sand cool underfoot, the air heavy with salt and pine. There's no fear here, only stillness. The same kind of stillness that comes before dreams begin to unfold. In the darkness, the outlines of the old colony flicker in imagination. A faint suggestion of walls, a beam of light where a window once was. History and nature overlap, blending until they are the same thing. The settlers' lives are no longer separate from the island. They are part of it, woven into its roots, whispered through its leaves. Morning comes again, soft and grey. Dew clings to every blade of grass, and the forest hums with quiet life. The island has no memory of pain, only persistence. What was once built by hands is now shaped by wind and rain. And in that transformation, there is grace, the quiet acceptance that nothing truly ends. The years stretch on. Trees fall and new ones grow in their place. The soil deepens, full of unseen remains. Birds sing over what were once rooftops. The forest doesn't hurry. It takes its time, turning the past into nourishment, letting history become earth again. Sometimes, visitors find small fragments, a shard of pottery, a rusted nail, a shape that doesn't belong. They hold it for a moment, then place it back gently, sensing the island's quiet. Roanoke doesn't need to speak loudly. It exists between memory and nature, content to remain mysterious. If your breathing has slowed, let it settle into the rhythm of the forest. The story has softened again, not about loss, but about peace. The settlers are gone, the colony vanished, yet the island thrives. Life goes on, patient and unbroken, under the wide, forgiving sky. As dusk returns, the sound of the ocean folds into the sound of wind through leaves. The forest sways in time, and everything seems to exhale at once. The island is whole again, not through rebuilding, but through remembering. It has become both the keeper and the comfort of all it once held. And as the stars rise above the canopy, the island grows still, as if listening. The waves continue their soft repetition, and history settles like dust upon the earth, quiet, gentle, and endlessly alive. As years drift into centuries, the island no longer feels touched by human hands. The forest now owns every corner, every root, every whisper of wind. The wooden homes have melted into soil, their stories scattered like seeds. The sand shifts over what was once a village, and the sea quietly carries away what remains. It's not a burial, but a return, a slow, graceful merging back into the rhythm of the world. The creatures of the island go about their lives unaware of the story beneath their feet. Deer move quietly through the trees, pausing where fires once burned. Birds nest in the hollows of what were once watchtowers. Every living thing contributes to the quiet rebuilding, not of walls, but of balance. The island has found harmony again, not through restoration, but through release. On still nights, the moonlight turns the forest silver. The air feels heavy and warm, thick with the scent of pine and salt. The sound of waves overlaps with the rustle of branches. Somewhere deep inside, the earth holds its secrets close. The colony's laughter, its fears, its final words, all have sunk softly into the roots, absorbed by the patience of nature. If you're still awake, imagine standing there beneath the stars. The air cools your skin, the wind brushes gently past. Around you, everything breathes slowly, evenly. There's no sound but the heartbeat of the earth. In this quiet, you realize The island hasn't forgotten. It has simply learned to keep its stories in silence. There's something peaceful in that thought. So much of history is noise, battles, speeches, the clamor of progress. But Roanoke's story rests instead in stillness, in the absence of movement. It teaches that disappearance can be beautiful, that to fade is not to vanish, but to join something larger. The settlers are not gone. They've become part of the land itself. The forest grows thicker still, its canopy blocking the stars. Time no longer matters here. Rain falls, sunlight returns, and the cycle repeats without memory or need. Nature doesn't rush. It moves in long, patient breaths, carrying the story forward quietly. It's a lullaby written in leaves and wind, one that never truly ends. Archaeologists and wanderers still come, brushing away soil, searching for answers. But the island only gives them fragments, enough to remind them, never enough to complete the puzzle. It's as though Roanoke is protecting its people, keeping them safe within its silence. The mystery remains gentle, never cruel. If your eyes are growing heavy, let that image linger, of an island covered in soft moss, the ocean breathing beside it, the stars above reflecting in shallow pools of rainwater. Everything is still. Everything belongs exactly where it is. The story doesn't need to continue. It already has, in ways no one can see. The trees sway with the evening wind. Their movement is slow, almost human. The sound of their branches brushing together could almost be voices, not words, just presence. The settler's memory lives in that motion, in that quiet repetition. They have become rhythm instead of history, a melody the island hums every night. When dawn comes again, the mist rises once more from the soil. Light filters through the branches, catching on droplets of dew. The world feels new, even after centuries. That's the gift of Roanoke, renewal through silence. It shows that even forgotten things can grow into something whole again. The island stands alone, but never lonely. It has the sea to sing to it, the wind to carry its secrets, and the stars to keep it company. It is history's resting place, not for sorrow, but for peace. Everything that once was human has found its place again in the eternal rhythm of creation. If your breathing matches that rhythm now, let it stay that way. Let the waves and the wind be your companions. There's nothing left to uncover, only the comfort of knowing the story has returned home, to earth, to air, to stillness. As night falls once more, the forest glows faintly in the moonlight. The sound of the tide slows to a whisper. The story of Roanoke fades into the background hum of the world, not lost, not gone, just sleeping. And in that sleep, it becomes eternal in the gentlest way possible. So rest, too. Let the forest hold you as it holds its secrets. Let the sea keep its rhythm. The past is quieted. The mystery has found peace. The island dreams, and through its dream, history breathes softly once again. Centuries after Roanoke vanished into the forest, the search for its truth continued, not with urgency, but with quiet fascination. Historians, explorers, and dreamers all felt the same pull. Something about the silence of the island called to them. It wasn't about uncovering bones or gold. It was about understanding a moment when human hope dissolved so gently into the rhythm of nature. The earliest explorers to return found little more than empty land and whispering trees. Still, they searched. They dug carefully through the soil, brushed away layers of time with steady hands, and listened, as if the earth itself might one day speak. What they found was never quite enough to explain everything, but always just enough to keep the story alive. In museums, small objects began to appear, a broken piece of pottery, a rusted nail, a fragment of a buckle. Each piece felt more like a sigh than a discovery, quiet reminders that the colony had once been real, that real people had lived, worked, and dreamed there. These fragments became voices without sound, a chorus of the forgotten. If you're listening closely, imagine these objects not as relics, but as memories. Each one has waited centuries to be seen again. Each one carries warmth still, from hands that once held it, from the lives that shaped it. History, after all, is never cold. It breathes quietly beneath the dust, waiting for someone to listen. As the years passed, the search became gentler. Modern archaeologists arrived not to claim, but to care. They moved with patience, sifting soil with brushes and fingertips, treating every find as sacred. The air around their work was filled not with noise, but with reverence, the calm respect of those who know they're walking on the edges of another world. Sometimes they'd find something as simple as a bead or a nail, and still the air would change. The forest would feel different for a moment, as though aware of being remembered. It's strange how much meaning can rest in something so small, how a fragment can hold the weight of centuries and the warmth of vanished lives. If your thoughts are beginning to slow, let them drift with the rhythm of this search. The story no longer moves quickly. It breathes in long, steady pauses. This is not a hunt for answers, but a conversation between the living and the long gone, between the earth and the hands that touch it. In recent years, technology has joined the quiet search. Ground scans, satellite images, chemical analyses, all tools of precision applied to a mystery shaped by patience. And yet, even with modern eyes, Roanoke remains partly unseen. The island guards its story well, offering only whispers in return. One archaeologist once said that studying Roanoke feels like chasing a shadow through fog. You think you see its shape, then it fades, leaving only a sense of wonder. That's the beauty of it, not frustration, but awe. The story isn't running away. It's simply too peaceful to be rushed. When visitors come to the island today, they find markers and plaques, small signs telling pieces of the story. But the real message isn't written in metal or stone. It's in the sound of the sea, the smell of the forest, the feeling of standing where time has slowed to a whisper. It's in knowing that the mystery is still breathing, softly, just beneath your feet. If your breathing has matched that rhythm now, slow, deep, unhurried, you're already walking with the story. This is what historians often forget, that the past isn't gone, it's simply quiet. You don't find it by forcing the ground to speak. You find it by listening long enough for its silence to feel like language. As night falls over modern Roanoke, the same moonlight glows over the same trees. The stars that once guided the settlers still shine above the archaeologists' tents. Time collapses there. The present brushes softly against the past, and for a moment, it feels as though nothing has truly disappeared. It has only grown still. And somewhere, as the night deepens and the sea murmurs softly against the shore, the island waits. It doesn't guard its secrets with fear, only patience. The story of Roanoke continues not through discovery, but through remembrance, carried gently by those who walk its quiet paths. If your eyes are heavy, let them rest. The search doesn't end here. It simply slows, like a tide pulling back into calm water. The mystery will wait. It always does. The search for Roanoke never truly stopped. Even today, new hands sift through the soil, new eyes scan the ground, new hearts listen for answers carried on the wind. But what they're really searching for isn't proof, it's connection. Every clue, no matter how small, feels like a bridge between two moments in time, the quiet past and the curious present. Modern technology has reached deeper than ever before. Drones trace the landscape, satellites capture every curve of the island, and computers build models of what once was. Yet, even through all the data and images, the same truth lingers. The heart of the mystery cannot be measured. It's not in the ground. It's in the silence that still fills the air. Some scientists say they've found evidence that matches English craftsmanship buried miles from the old settlement. Others argue the artifacts tell a different story, of trade, of migration, of human adaptation. None of them are wrong. Each theory adds another layer to the conversation, another heartbeat in the long rhythm of history's patience. If you're listening closely, let yourself slow down here. This is where the story breathes the deepest, not in discovery, but in stillness. The people who vanished centuries ago have left more than ruins. They've left a lesson that history doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it simply waits to be noticed. At night, when researchers pack their tools and the lights go out, the island returns to its natural calm. The waves whisper at the edges of the shore. The trees sigh in the wind. In that silence, it's easy to imagine the settlers' presence lingering, not as ghosts, but as echoes of ordinary life, laughter, work, prayer, sleep, all woven into the earth itself. Each generation rediscovers the story and adds its own voice to it. What began as a disappearance has become a meditation, a reminder that every mystery has two sides, what is lost and what remains. In searching for one, we often find the other. The search for Roanoke, in truth, is the search for ourselves, for meaning in the quiet spaces history leaves behind. The island has learned to exist between worlds, the seen and the unseen, the told and the untold. When the wind moves through its trees, it sounds like pages turning. When the waves reach the shore, they sound like soft words being spoken too far away to understand. Every part of it feels alive with memory. If your mind has started to drift, let it follow those sounds. The rhythm of the waves, the soft brush of branches, the faint creak of old wood underfoot, all of them remind us that time is not a straight line. It circles back, gently, patiently, until everything becomes part of everything else again. Somewhere inland, researchers still dig. They pause sometimes, closing their eyes, letting the forest's hush settle around them. It's hard to explain, they say, the feeling that someone is near, that the past is close enough to touch. The island, after all, is never empty. It's only quiet. When evening comes, and the last rays of sunlight fade, the world there feels weightless. The sound of the tide, the scent of pine, the faint hum of insects, all merge into one soft breath. The island seems to exhale, content to rest again after being disturbed. Every search ends this way, not with revelation, but with calm acceptance. If your breathing matches that rhythm now, stay there. The mystery has no urgency. It doesn't want solving. It only wants remembering. Like an old song hummed before sleep, it exists to slow your thoughts, to remind you that wonder doesn't always need answers. The people who study Roanoke often say they've learned more about humanity than about history. They've learned how curiosity can be kind, how questions can be gentle. In a world that rushes for conclusions, this mystery teaches the beauty of waiting, of letting the unknown remain unbroken. One day, perhaps, the final clue will appear. A mark in the soil, a map in a journal, a voice carried by time. Or maybe not. Maybe the truth is already here, resting quietly beneath the trees. Not hidden, just complete. The island doesn't seem to mind either way. It has learned the art of peace, of letting things be. The same waves that once watched the settlers' arrival now roll on, unchanged, unending. The same stars still shine above, patient witnesses to everything and nothing at once. If your eyes are heavy now, let them close. Picture that island as it is tonight, wrapped in mist, surrounded by the soft pulse of the sea. The searchers have gone home. The fires are out. The mystery sleeps once more, safe beneath the trees. And maybe that's how all stories should rest, not with a final word, but with a whisper. Quiet, patient, eternal in memory. The island of Roanoke remains, waiting not to be found, but to be felt, gently, like the hush that comes just before you drift into sleep. Night has fallen once more over the island of Roanoke. The sea moves in slow, patient tides, brushing the shore with a rhythm older than any memory. The stars shimmer faintly above, just as they did centuries ago, unchanged by time or story. The air carries the same scent of salt and pine, the same softness that once touched the settlers' faces. Everything feels eternal now, not in sound, but in silence. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the gentle breath of the world sleeping. The forest hums faintly, the ocean sighs, and the island rests. Somewhere within that stillness lies the heart of Roanoke's story, not one of loss or despair, but of calm surrender to the passage of time. Nothing here struggles to be remembered. It simply is. The word once carved into wood has long faded, softened by wind and rain. Yet its meaning remains, not as a riddle, but as a reminder. All things pass, and in passing, they find peace. History does not end. It quiets. It folds into the soil, into the rhythm of the sea, into the unbroken continuity of life. Those who still search for answers may never realize that Roanoke's greatest truth has already revealed itself, that disappearance can be beautiful, that silence can be full, and that sometimes the most profound stories end without finality. The island has become a kind of lullaby for history itself, soothing, cyclical, endlessly gentle. If your thoughts have slowed, let them settle like dust over calm water. Every mystery, when left undisturbed, becomes a reflection of its seeker. The story of Roanoke reflects not emptiness, but humanity, our longing to know, to understand, and to be remembered. And in that longing, we are connected to those who once stood on this same shore, gazing into the horizon, wondering what might come next. As centuries pass, the island remains unchanged in its quiet. Nature continues her patient work, weaving time and memory together. The trees still sway in the same wind, their leaves whispering softly to no one and everyone. The soil beneath still holds fragments of dreams, the shape of a handprint, the outline of a life. They are gone, but not lost. They have simply joined the rhythm of the world. In every whisper of the forest, there is remembrance. In every wave, a gentle retelling. The story hasn't ended. It has transformed, as all stories must. History does not vanish when it fades from record. It becomes something quieter, something deeper, something that hums softly through time like a heartbeat in sleep. If you're still awake, you might feel that hum now, a quiet vibration somewhere between thought and dream. It's the sound of history breathing beneath the surface, steady and unbroken. The same sound that once filled the nights of the settlers, the same sound that will outlast all of us. Roanoke no longer belongs to explorers or historians. It belongs to the elements, the wind that moves gently through its trees, the sea that polishes its stones, the sky that watches with eternal patience. Each of them holds a piece of the story, but none of them speak it aloud. That is the beauty of this mystery. It survives through stillness. At dusk, the island glows gold beneath the fading sun. Shadows stretch across the sand, and the forest breathes in one long, collective sigh. If the settlers' voices were ever to return, they would blend perfectly into the breeze, not as ghosts, but as echoes of life continuing in another form. If your breathing has found its rhythm now, let it stay there. The island's calm can be yours too. Every sound here, the soft crash of waves, the distant call of a bird, feels designed to remind you that peace is not the absence of story, but the acceptance of it. Roanoke's mystery sleeps not in sorrow, but in surrender. When night deepens, the stars appear clearer than before. Their light rests on the surface of the sea like faint silver dust. The world feels smaller, contained within the gentle balance of sky, land, and water. Time, in that moment, seems to pause, holding everything together in quiet harmony. The island's edges blur into shadow. The trees stand motionless. The ocean whispers, repeating the same patient refrain it has always known. It's easy to imagine the settlers here still, not lost, not gone, just woven into the pulse of the island, resting as the forest rests, sleeping as the waves sleep. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel it, that soft union between what once was and what remains. The mystery isn't meant to be solved. It's meant to be felt. It's the kind of story that doesn't keep you awake. It helps you drift gently toward rest, carrying you with the tide of time itself. And as the stars continue their endless watch, the island breathes quietly beneath them. The mystery of Roanoke, at last, has found its perfect place, not in the pages of history, but in the stillness of the night, where all stories eventually come to rest. Dawn arrives softly over the horizon, painting the sky with muted gold and pale blue. The island stirs beneath its veil of mist, as if waking from a long and gentle dream. Waves roll in with the same timeless rhythm, brushing against the shore with care. The world feels fresh, renewed, and yet it holds the same quiet it always has. The mystery remains untouched, safe in the folds of morning light. Birds rise into the air, their wings catching the first warmth of the day. Their songs echo lightly through the trees, mingling with the hum of wind through the grass. There's no trace of sorrow here, no weight of loss. What once began as a question has become something softer, an understanding that not everything forgotten is truly gone. Some stories live on simply by being remembered. As the sun climbs higher, the forest reveals its colors. Greens and gold shimmer between the shadows, painting the world anew. The island feels alive again, not haunted, not hollow, but peaceful. The settlers, the ships, the word carved long ago, they all exist now as threads in the same endless fabric of life, blending into the pulse of nature itself. For those who still visit, standing where history once breathed, the feeling is the same. The silence presses close, not heavy, but warm. The sea whispers nearby, repeating the same lullaby it has sung for centuries. It's as if the island itself is saying, "It's all right. Everything has come home." If you're still listening, let your breathing follow that rhythm, in and out, like the tide. The story is slow now, almost asleep. You can feel its peace spreading through the quiet, the kind that doesn't need endings, only stillness. The kind that lets you rest. Even the wind seems to move carefully here. It slips between branches, gliding softly across the surface of the water. The sound is like a sigh of contentment, the island's final word. Nothing dramatic, nothing grand, just calm acceptance, the language of time itself. Overhead, clouds drift lazily, their shapes reflected in the tide pools below. Everything mirrors everything. The ocean mirrors the sky. The trees mirror the waves. And you, sitting here, listening, breathing, a part of that reflection too. For a moment, you are the island. You are the silence. You are the peace. If your eyes are beginning to close, let them. The world doesn't need watching right now. The story will keep breathing without you. It always has. It's the kind of story that belongs to the night, to the waves, to the soft rhythm of thought that drifts somewhere between waking and dream. As twilight returns, the ocean glows faintly again, catching the last light of the sun. The island prepares to rest, its shadows deepening, its edges fading into the sea. The forest hums low, a sound like a lullaby to itself. Every living thing slows, exhales, and finds its place in the quiet. The mystery of Roanoke does not end here. It simply continues, unseen, in the spaces between time, in the rustle of leaves, in the hush of the wind, in the gentle pause of history. It sleeps, not forgotten, but fulfilled. If your breathing is slow now, stay with it. You've walked through centuries tonight, from storm to silence, from fear to peace. The story has carried you gently, and now it sets you down softly at the edge of rest. You are safe here. The waves are calm. The island is quiet. All mysteries, eventually, become part of something larger. They merge into the song of the world, patient, endless, and kind. Roanoke has become that song. It hums beneath the surface of time, peaceful and unbroken, waiting for the next listener to lean close and hear it again. And now, as the sea breathes one final rhythm and the stars return above the island, the story finds its rest. The world is quiet. The wind is soft. History sleeps, wrapped in its own silence, eternal in memory. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, let that same calm surround you. The story is complete. The night is gentle. And somewhere, far away, the island of Roanoke still dreams under the moonlight, untouched, untroubled, and forever at peace. Thank you for listening to this story, for letting it slow your thoughts and soften your night. May your rest be calm, your dreams kind, and your heart light. Until the next quiet journey through history, good night.